For the past month and a half, every time I'm in that scenario, it turns into a full-size loss. There's an offering, there's this, there's that, the stock comes down. Whatever makes it happen, it's really just the dynamic of the market.
Welcome back, everybody, to Be The Trader. Today, it's gonna be an awesome day, okay? I don't know if you recognize this scenery, but I'm in Arizona, and I talked to our really good friend now and trader, Dom, Master Mateo, and now I'm talking to someone who's been on the show before, but him and Dom are building something great that he's gonna talk about as well. But I just want you guys to know, we're bringing back Mike Huddie to discuss something that's really important that I think we all go through. And I know for a fact you're gonna learn something from this. So Mike, welcome back to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Always love to be on this show.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that. We talked maybe 6 months ago or something
October.
like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think things were doing pretty well, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you had a good run or something happened. Like you had a really big winner.
So we can talk about that.
So go ahead and like fill us in on like how things have been.
So I want to talk about, I guess today, like state of the market, right? Because I think newer traders need to understand that like the market isn't the same month after month after month, year after year after year. It's constantly shifting and changing, whether there's different kinds of volume, different kind of ways that the patterns are playing out. And what I kind of realized, like, after April of 2021, there was a shift in the market sentiment and the ways that, stocks were running, multi-day runners, breakouts, they were just working different. It was choppy is what I would call it. Like
yes.
During 2020 and 2021, like stocks would run very fluidly. Now it feels like that's no longer the case. And so I've had to adjust to that. It feels like I'm right back to the beginning where it's like, okay, this isn't working, so what do I have to do? And that's a lot of self-reflection. That's the stuff that people don't really talk about in trading, where it's like, okay, it was going well, but now it doesn't feel like it's working at all. What does one do in that moment, and what are things to protect yourself, right? Because the whole thing is like, if the market was once the way that you liked it, the market rhymes in the future. Like it'll come back in one weird way or another, but how do you protect yourself in the meantime from blowing up, from preserving your capital, from doing all those things that you need to do as a trader because you don't want to fall into, maybe like a gambling loop,
right?
What I would call it. So, I took a step back, after October, especially after our meeting, and not that anything happened specifically, but I took a step back. I wanted to be slow. I didn't really want to trade everything and anything, kind of like what we were doing in 2020 and 2021.
Yes.
I wanted to be really specific, make sure I was focusing on stocks with, a ton of liquidity, ton of volume, maybe a sector theme, or maybe like the whole world is short. Yep. I wanted to really find stocks that had reason to run and then get involved in those. And that led to a lot less trading. So preservation of capital was a thing.
Yep.
I toned down my size so that, when I did trade, it didn't feel like I was losing a lot of money. It felt like I was very stable and consistent. Like my drawdown from the highs wasn't crazy.
Right.
And then what happened is we had this oil and gas thing happen with Ukraine.
Yes.
And if I've learned anything in my stock trading career, it's pandemic. Crisis equals opportunity. We saw it with the pandemic where there was a crisis and then vaccine stocks went crazy. And really all stocks, but vaccine stocks went crazy. It's not really just crises, but Bitcoin, marijuana, sector
big events,
themes.
big changes.
Big events, like macro events making movements in our small cap. Like I find that is one of the more explosive catalysts that a trader can find.
Yes.
So, I'm small, I'm not trading big, I'm not trading a lot, I'm trying to do other things with my time, not be glued to the screens, because I know it's not good for me. I know if I stay at the screen, I'm gonna start losing money, and then that's gonna do a lot of things to my psyche. Hesitation, lack of confidence, can't size in, all these things. So I'd rather not trade, right? I'd rather go out and then come back when the market's right. And that's what happened with the oil and gas sector. I'm being careful, stepping on glass, knowing that everything is probably gonna backfire on me, and then this huge catalyst comes where, Russia's sending missiles to Ukraine. And we've already seen it. Like I've been thinking about the oil and gas sector this whole year because I'm invested in Exxon, and like I've known that the oil and gas sector has been strong. Like I know energy has been good. For reasons that doesn't really concern this story, but I knew that there was strength, relative strength to the market, had been, and I was just kind of waiting for oil and gas to pop off. I didn't know Russia was going to send missiles to Ukraine.
Right.
But when I heard that and I saw what was happening to the price of crude, and I was looking at the indices.
Hey, we wouldn't be able to do these face-to-face interviews if it wasn't for our sponsor, Cobra Trading. So if you can just give them a few seconds of your time, we'd really appreciate it. Cobra Trading is the go-to broker for day traders and short sellers. And I'm not the only one saying this. In fact, Benzinga awarded Cobra Trading as the go-to broker for short selling. They have a heavy focus on direct market access order routing, so you have the fastest execution. They have some of the best locate prices and availability. They also have amazing customer service. I've experienced many different brokers, and it's why I use them every single day and why I'm proud to have them as our sponsor. Sign up now by clicking the Be The Trader referral link below and earn 1 free month of software with Cobra and 25% off all commissions. Now let's get back to the show.
I saw a lot of strength, like abnormal movements. And so that made me really curious about the small caps. I started looking at every single small cap oil and gas ticker because that has been a sector in the past.
Yes.
So when you know certain stocks run within a sector, when they become trader favorites, if you can get in early and you can spot the momentum coming, you can make a killing. I mean, the stocks that I was buying, like originally they're like $1, and by the time the story's over, they were at 8, like 800% or whatever it is. So going down the path, looking at all of the oil and gas tickers, I'm looking for things that have smaller market caps,
right,
less shares outstanding. I'm looking for things that have lack of dilution because if I'm going to sit in it for a while, I want to be safe. I don't want someone to be constantly selling on me. So I found all the ones I liked, and then I was letting the price action play out. And it was very specific what happened. There was 2 stocks,
okay,
INDO and INPP. And INDO kept having these breakouts where it broke out to 7, went to 13, went from 13 to 20. And I was pretty much, like I made money on both those breakouts, but I didn't have size. I didn't have confidence. I was still like stepping on glass, but I was letting the market dictate my aggression. And each breakout that INDO had was like very good. Like the gap ups were 30%, let alone where my entry was, right? So it felt very like 2021 where we had that kind of market dynamic again. And I was small size, stepping on, but again, I think what is really good for a trader, what you do have to do as a trader is be there at the market, retaining information, keeping a pulse, knowing why things are moving, how things are moving, and I guess really why, right? So I saw INDO, I played INDO, small, like $10 stock, I had 750 shares, right? Like small. And then INDO has its it's like I bought it at 13, it went to 25 or whatever, and then kind of like cracked in the day and I sold it. And then the next day it's like gapping up and I'm thinking like there's a chance that this becomes a black swan. I've seen this before, I know exactly how this ends. And I looked at all my tickers and I'm like, what other ones are like running with this? What are his friends, right? Because if he's gonna go to 50, where it went is 70, right? If he's gonna go there, something's gonna follow. And I wanna be ready to pull trig. And not with 700 shares, I want a lot of size because I have belief that this is gonna work because not only did it work with a very similar situation, but that same similar situation is still going much, much, much higher. So there was like a laggard in the group is what I was looking for. Something that was lagging, that was trading the volume, that had explosivity, that was up enough to have shorts involved where we could squeeze some of those guys. I was gonna call them mother effers, but I stopped myself.
I appreciate that.
So I found INPP.
Yes.
And it had this amazing breakout over 250, 270 area. I sized in. I was like, this is one where I'm going to go really big. Like if I take a 5, 8, 10K loss, that would suck. But I think the reward is way worth it to be sized in this scenario.
Gotcha.
Given our circumstances right now. So again, light, and then big. And I ended up with, and it wasn't that big, but 40,000 shares at 252 on INPP, which is decent. It's 100 grand in the stock. I honestly wanted more. But I felt like I was like being a little too aggressive at that point. That was a big position for me.
Yes.
And the story is like, whatever, like that weekend, it closed Friday, it closed at 350, 360. After hours, it goes to 4. I'm up 100% on 100 grand. Monday rolls around, WTI, we went to 130 or something. Just crazy. Like missiles went to Ukraine and that spiked everything in a very small moment of opportunity. And I was sized into the right stock. And the next day it opened up I wasn't at 250. It opened up at 460. It ran to 7 that day. I locked in a 6-figure trade. It would have been a double 6-figure trade had I held another 30 minutes, and that's trading. It was very choppy and hard to know every penny was $400 and it was moving 30 pennies at a time. It was very tough. To be patient and just like stick to this idea that like this is a very unique phenomenon. Like gas prices, right, are going to astronomical prices. That's going to have an effect within the stock market. And it's my job as a day trader to position myself in that opportunity at the right time in the right moment. But then there's also what comes after. And that's another part of this interview that's probably a good part of it.
Because what happens next is interesting because I think a lot of people can relate.
So I had a really good trade.
But before you go into what happens next, I need to ask you something because you hit some things on there already.
Let's do it.
And one of those was you start to realize there's a shift in the market. right?
Yeah.
And so instead of keep pushing, you start to, downsize,
Pull back.
slow down, and reduce the amount of losses. If this is going to be a drawdown, want it to be a small one.
Yeah.
And because of that focus, you were able to like hit it whenever you start to get more comfortable when you see something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of traders, they assume Mike Huddie, anyone, name any trader.
Sure.
Like there's Mike Huddie, Dom, Nate, whoever. And they'll make the assumption on their own that they think that you're killing it every single day.
Always trading. And
Right.
always in the right stock.
Right? Always in the right one. He never makes mistakes. But
And that's wrong. That's not true.
And how you shared that, it shows that.
Yeah, so from October to that moment it was March, right? I think it was beginning of March.
Yep.
Like I was not profitable. I mean,
Yeah.
it was probably down 20K from my highs.
Yep.
That's 4 months of like, I wouldn't call it hard work. Like I wasn't there pushing buttons every day, but every time I was there pushing buttons, I wasn't like winning.
Right.
But I also knew that dynamic was there, so I made sure that if I was going to lose, I'd lose small.
Yes.
Because I know this is all a game of risk reward, and it's a numbers game. Like the second you can find yourself into a profitable situation, an explosive situation, you can make back a lot of losses. You can pay for a lot of losses. So like, yeah, 4 months, it was tough. There was days where I'd make 1,000. There's days I'd, lose 1,005.
Yep.
And it was kind of this like 1 step forward, 1.5 back that a lot of traders go through.
Yes, bro.
And the hard part is to find that moment to say, hey, this is when to push the throttle. This is when to still have risk intact. I mean, like my account is wherever it is, but
Right.
10K off the highs, 20K off the highs didn't affect me mentally. Didn't feel like I was losing money. Didn't feel
Right.
like I was in really a hole. And then I hit 6 figures on one trade, and then I have to short them all for the rest of the week. Like I made all that money and a lot more.
Right.
It just takes one moment. It takes one, I don't know if it's a hot streak or momentum, but it takes an awareness, is really an observation and awareness to know where you're at and to know how to handle those.
Yes, bro. Because
situations.
you have to see that. You have to take a step back
Yeah.
and kind of see that, hey, I got to change how I'm acting.
And it's those
trading.
moments where it's like traders start to think to themselves where it's like, am I a good trader? Do I know what I'm doing? Did I
Yes,
just
bro.
get lucky? Should I not be doing this anymore? And like I've had all those thoughts,
Right.
and I have them like once every 2.5 years.
Right.
And what I've learned after 7 years of trading is that feeling always goes away. That market that you know what to do, or those runners, at least even if they're individual runners that you know how to work with, that does come back. Those scenarios, they come back. So it's just about it's not like I saw what I saw during these 4 months that I was kind of bleeding is a lot of traders who did really well in 2021 went to options. And then they're like, hey, are you trading the options because small cap is dead? Let's trade, big
Yep.
cap and let's trade the options so we can afford them or whatever
Yep.
the narrative is. And I'm like, no, like I'd rather not trade than try to do something else that I don't know makes me money.
Yes.
I want to stay where I know, where I feel it, not just in my, like not just think it, but like I know that this next move is coming, so I want to be positioned.
Right.
And I'm just trying to find scenarios like that. And for a while it wasn't there. And that doesn't mean I'm going to go try to gamble on like a Tesla dip to 500. Like I'm sure it might bounce. And it did, whatever it did.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be that guy that's like fiending to make money because I feel like that's where you put yourself in exposed risk areas where you might lose money that you didn't need to lose. And that hurts me most. That hurts me as a trader the most when I lose unnecessarily. If I lose because it's a good play, it's a well thought out plan, I have the thesis,
Yep.
I have expectations, I've been here before, I'm getting it done, and I lose,
Yep.
that's fine. It's a game of odds, that's gonna happen. But if I'm doing something stupid because I'm bored or because there's not really opportunity, and then I take a big lick, then I'm like, it's not about the money for me. It's never been about the money. I'm good, right? But it's undisciplined, it's unresponsible, it's immature, it's a lack of professionalism, and that, like, it's so easy to be all those things in the stock market
Yep.
because no one's telling you, take your hand off the mouse, click the button, don't click the button. So it's really easy to get off kilter. And when I allow that to myself, like in the moment I know I'm doing it, I'm like, this is stupid. And then I do
Right.
it and I'm like, wow, that's so stupid. And then I immediately take that loss. That part irks me so much. And so that's what I try to avoid at all costs. How do I be safe, disciplined, and wait for my moments to really attack? And that was what happened, and then leading up to March, and then if you want to get into the second half of the story, we
Yes,
can
get
get
into
into
that. That's why I bring that up because that's important because people are going through these times. They might be facing this, what you're about to explain, and I think this is going to be valuable. So what happens next after you have this badass trade?
Yeah, so it's not all rainbows and sunshine after the badass trade, right? Because your psyche, like your biggest enemy in the stock market is yourself. Okay, you're your worst enemy. Like taking an undisciplined, unnecessary trade is your own decision. Like no one can make that for you. I forgot where I was going with that.
You were saying like you had this really good trade, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to go through a rough patch. But
So
what
the
happened?
mental
How did it
side.
start?
So the mental side, like coming off of a 6-figure trade, right? you're juiced, you're
Yep.
confident. You kind of feel like you're on top of the world for a lot of different things. And you also know in the back of your mind to calm those thoughts and what's going on. I kind of took it under the presumption that I think a lot of traders would go through is that, we have these stocks that go from $1 to 8 or like, 10 to 80,
Yes.
that the market's back, that it's time to press, that it's time to throttle. And that kind of killed me because I was overconfident. I wanted that opportunity to stay, and what happened was the opportunity left. And we got right back into the same market that we had been going through for the past 4 months, but I had a different mentality that I wanted to press, I wanted to throw, I wanted to make that money again. Like 6 figures in a day was cool, let's do it again.
Yep.
Let's do 2 this time. I got a taste for
Your blood's
blood.
pumping right now. You're like, I
I got a taste for blood and I wanted
it.
it again. And the fact was like the opportunity wasn't there. Like Ukraine, they were still sending missiles to Russia, but it wasn't this like impactful, like big sector thing that was going on, this like big theme in the back of my mind that like was really pushing these stocks forward. So I'm going back to day trading, trading, small market cap, non-dilutive stocks that are breaking out of certain ranges. And I didn't tone back the size. So I was still willing to take, and still for me, it's fine. Like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6K losses, like were kind of a thing. And I was still trying to like push that size and feel good about using this kind of volume and that kind of size. And ended up in the situation, this is the market, and the market we're in is like a very choppy market. You can have a picture perfect breakout and it can do everything you want it into close. And then in the last 15 minutes, it has like one pullback and it means absolute disaster. Like it turns into death. And for me, a lot of the ways that I do well is like I take a stock towards close and I swing into the next day and I let it gap up and spike. These days, if I do that, I usually end up with a full size loss. So for the past month and a half, it's been really frustrating for me. For the past month and a half, I've been in a ton of good scenarios. I mean, the amount of unrealized profits I've let get away from me is a stupid number that I don't want to talk about. But I've been in great scenarios, up, good risk reward at close, maybe 1 to 4, 1 to 5 scenarios, thinking the stock's going to gap up and spike. There hasn't been a pullback. There's no reason for me to sell. Like I'm comfortable and I feel like the stock is working. I feel like it's strong and it should continue the next day. And for the past month and a half, every time I'm in that scenario, it turns into a full size loss. There's an offering, there's this, there's that. The stock comes down. Whatever makes it happen, it's really just the dynamic of the market. And so what I've been going through for the past, month and a half is a bleeding.
Yes.
And I've been bleeding. I had 100K in a day and now I've pretty much dwindled most of that back down to zero. It's not at zero. I don't know where it is. I don't want to look. I'm scared.
Yep.
But it has been dwindling. And that's because, I didn't adapt. I allowed that moment of opportunity to kind of change my whole, where I've been safe, I've been pulled back, I've been conservative with my size. And then I didn't take it back down. I thought the market was back and I allowed that to blind me to what the market was really telling me, which is that this is a tough market and that a lot of traders are not doing well right now. And just because there was a week and a half of like phenomenal opportunity doesn't mean the next month and a half is going to be phenomenal opportunity, but that is how I treated it. So, the money being gone is not like the worst thing for me. And again, I haven't dwindled at all. Like I still feel good about my year and everything about it. But it was a hard learning lesson and it weighs, heavy on my shoulders. It makes me not want to trade because I'm the whole guy that's always been like, when the market is easy, that's when I want to be there.
Right. I remember that.
When it's hard, like it's not a fun scenario. It's not like fun to go out and be in good situations, be up 5 figures in profits and then have that turn into a full-size loser day after day. Like that's really tough on your mental, your psyche.
Yeah.
So I've been going through that for the past month and a half. And whenever this happens, like I always have to go back to my bread and butter. I have to go back to what's made me rich, what's made me successful,
Right.
where am I confident, where do I know? Where do I feel it more than just my extremities, like on the inside, like where do I feel it? And like always, like first red days.
Where's home to you?
And that's for me, it's first red days, right? Something, a short setup of some sort. Like when a stock gets extended, it makes a lot of sense to me. It always has that. It's going to have a pullback. It's going to have, and if it's volatile, it might be an extreme pullback and I want to be involved on that downward move. That I feel always confident about. That whole psychology of like who's left to buy and if there's only sellers attacking the stock, there's going to be a pullback. The problem is like when you're trading and it's live and it's like current, you don't necessarily know when that next one's going to be. And especially if you're having a choppy market, like it's really hard to let a stock extend and then get involved short if nothing's extending. So it becomes this whole like game of like patience and discipline of just like, okay, I know what I want to see, but it's also not there right now. So again, how do I go back into protection mode, not trade, not get involved? Because like the odds of my next stock being a loss or not a great gain are pretty high.
Yep.
The odds of the next one being a 6-figure trade are probably slim to none, right? So it's just, again, going back to knowing your market, knowing your dynamics, knowing where you want to be, and like being so aware of what's driving your success. It might not just be you. It might also be help from the market.
Well, let me ask you this though, because you go through this moment where you're on a high and then you start to dwindle on that, right? When that happens, you just didn't recognize fast enough, as you mentioned, that it was just kind of like a quick little pop and not the whole market's changing, because you first thought, hey, the market's on fire, so let me get to it. What are you going to do this time? Like, is there any lesson you're going to take away from that previous account to this next time where you're coming back again, right? And then you hit like how are you going to differentiate this time between, oh, the market's back and, it's not yet?
I think the most important thing is to just define what you really want to see. Like, what led to that great trade? What were the components that put me in a really good situation? A sector theme, a heavily shorted stocks. I mean, that was really extended, a lot of volume, big macro catalyst. Like, that was a good situation to put myself in. And that's what I like more than finding some stock to day trade and make 5 pennies from. Like, I freaking hate that. I won't take the money. And that's part of the reason. Like, a lot of the past month and a half is I've been in good situations. I've been up 10, 15K in a day. Like, that's not bad money, but I don't take it because I feel like I want more out of the move. That's just who I am as a trader. And so I need to define those scenarios I want to put myself in. And then if I want to be long biased in those scenarios, that's when to push it. And then when it comes back to the I call it like the petty stuff, right? Like the day in, day trading, the fighting in the weeds, the, buying a 40-cent stock and selling it at 42 or 43. Like, I think that is so dumb. I hate it. I don't want to scalp. I don't want to be pushing buttons. I don't want to be like overthinking trading all the time.
Right.
I just would rather wait for something that is defined, right? As something that I know is a really unique scenario, something that I profited on in the past, and something that I'm comfortable being in because I know that if I take a loss, fine, because the reward is so plentiful. And that is not the situation you get every day trading any breakout that you see on a small cap. Like, a lot of them are not going to do something crazy. Most of them are not going to do something crazy. And for a while for me, I'm just going to go off on tangents. For a while for me, it's been about, proving concept consistently, like income, right? But now it's not really about income. It's about like what can I do in this scenario? How much money can I make? Like, instead of day trading every day to like prove profit, I've already done that. And now I don't want to do that. I don't want to make $1,000, $2,000 a day because it's not worth it on the flip side of the risk side, right? It just doesn't make sense. You eventually net out break even wallet patterns. They don't really do anything until that big scenario comes around and you need to be confident and ready to attack it. So to get back to your question and to answer it in 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes, really just defining, knowing what was that situation and why did that dynamic work so well for me and why was I so happy to size in? And knowing that majority of the time, just random stocks, that's not really what I want to trade anymore. Back in the day, like, I'd want to trade every day. I'd want to buy a breakout. I want to buy a first green day. I'd want to short a first red day, whatever it is. Now I just want to be there when it's good, when there's liquidity, when there's volatility, when it's something that can actually move the milestones in my account. So that's what I'm looking for, and it's really like right now, like I'm really pulled back, like I'm really not trying to trade. Are you finding that
easy to do? Like finding it easy to pull back again and just like kind of just like stay blacks until that one?
Yeah, because for me it's like the opportunity is not there. But like what I do is like I run the scans every day, like I keep a pulse on the market. I talk to traders, like I know what's moving, I know why things are moving. I'm up to date with the news. I'm just not trying to buy a silly stock and move it 3 cents and then sell it for 10, 15% or 1 to 3 risk reward and call it a good day. Like I just don't care. That's not going to do anything for me in terms of like now my new objectives. Like, what is the point of just making money? Making money is a dead end goal. Like once you have a lot of money, then you have nothing. So it's like, what do you want to do with that money? Why do you want to make that money? What is this feeling that it gives you, or what are you trying to ascertain? And those are all intrinsic questions that I'm asking myself these days. Like, what is the point here? Once you get over 7 figures and you have a comfortable lifestyle, now what? What's next? And that's what's getting really exciting. And I know to get to what's next is not making $1,000 to $2,000, $3,000 a day. That's petty to me. What's the next step? What's the next level? Where can I scale? And that's what's getting. And so I think the stock market is great because it can provide you an opportunity to pull a lot of money out of it in a snap of the fingers. So it's great for capital appreciation with a goal. But again, like my initial reason for trading was prove profit consistently, day in, day out. Can I make money? I proved that to myself. I know I can do that. So what's next? I don't really want to do that battle anymore. Again, being in the weeds, being in the trenches, just fighting it out every day for not a lot of money is not my idea of fun. I want to do something else. I want to build something. And then if the market is going to provide opportunity, if the market's going to be 2020, 2021, marijuana is going to get legalized, if something big is going on, then I want to get back to my patterns. I want to trade heavy and I want to trade well. But if that's not there, I need to know that it's not my market. I got to pull back. These are not my scenarios. These are not my settings. I'm not going to take the profits if I have them. And if I don't take the profits when I have them on a small cap, it'll be a loss.
Yep.
You know, because small caps are,
trash,
small caps.
Move quick. Yep.
So yeah, that is my mentality. You know, after 7 years of trading, it's really morphed and it's become what it is. And
so it started off as like, I want to build, and now it's like, let me preserve my capital to the best opportunity so I can capitalize on a bigger opportunity.
Yeah.
In one go.
Save the mental space, and then also like use the money that I have that I built.
Yep.
And displace it elsewhere. You know, like it's not just about having money; it's about having your money work for you, so you don't have to work, right? Which is a whole nother tangent that we would go off on for another 30 minutes, and we're not going to go down that road.
No, we're not.
But I mean, if you think about it, like I don't need all my capital in my accounts. I don't need anywhere near all my capital. Like if I did 6 figures in a day with a 6-figure position.
Right.
You know, so I don't need a mill. That's not the kind of trader I am. So a lot of introspective thinking going on.
What I love about you bringing all this up is because so many traders, like I said at the beginning, they just assume that you're just going to kill it every single day.
Yeah.
And you're just showing that you're going to have your run and you're going to go through battles, and it's just constant, no matter where you are in your journey, which I think a lot of people need to see because they don't see that, right? They see just the Twitter. That's all
they see the charts, the entries, the exits, the profits, and there's a lot more going on in the background for sure.
There's a lot more. And just before we wrap this up though, because first off, thank you for sharing that story. Because you don't have to share. I love that you're open to sharing, like, hey, I went through this. I'm going through this right now.
Yeah.
Like it happens. Every trader does. And a lot of people don't know that, I talk to a lot of other traders, so do you.
Yeah.
And they all go through it. Every single person.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal. It's just like you got to keep fighting and just stay in the right mindset. And
Absolutely.
I know you're
That's
all
good
about
advice.
that. So
Mindset.
where can people find out more about you, Mike, just in case like they're like, hey, like there's something Alex didn't hit on. I want to ask you this question.
Sure. So I partnered up with Don Master Mateo. You've actually interviewed him in the past. If you guys haven't watched that video, you guys should. We partnered up and we started an educational service teaching about the patterns and how we trade the patterns that we like to trade.
Yep.
You can find us at huddieanddom.com. It's actually pretty simple.
I appreciate it, brother. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Absolutely.